What's up, Star Wars nerds, and welcome to another episode of Brett on Fett. On today's episode, I'll be counting down my top 5 most important characters missing from the Vintage Collection for the Phantom Menace. Plus, I'll be giving my top 5 favorite current TVC figures from the Phantom Menace. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 88 of Brett on Fett, and I've been wanting to start a new series for my channel that I'm calling M.I.A.F.F, or Missing in Action Figure Form, where we talk about the most important characters from our favorite Star Wars films and episodes that are still missing in action figure form, primarily for the TVC line. And I'm going to be going through each film first, and then I'll start tackling the TV series. And for this inaugural episode of M.I.A.F.F, I'm going to be starting with episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, just to clarify, for these episodes, I'm not necessarily giving my top 5 most wanted figures for each of the films. This is more about what I consider the most important, or at least most iconic characters from the films that I just can't believe Hasbro has not made for the TVC line yet. But before we get to that, let's first take a quick look at all the characters we already do have in the Vintage Collection from the Phantom Menace, and I'll go ahead and give you my top 5 personal favorites of those. Let's take a look. Alright, so here's a look at all of the Phantom Menace figures that are in the Vintage Collection line currently. And by the way, I clipped this from some awesome checklists put out by Steve Evans. If you don't know who Steve Evans is, he's a longtime Hasbro man. He was in Star Wars for a while and then was strictly Marvel, but now back as a design director over both Marvel and Star Wars. And so if you go to his Instagram page, which is at Mr. Stevie18, he's got a link tree that includes a link to his web page, which has these awesome figure checklists for both Marvel and Star Wars. And the TVC checklists he put out are awesome. Great high-resolution images of all the figures with the VC numbering, and he even confirmed some upcoming VC numbers when he put out that checklist. And these are readily available for everyone to go and download. They've got the regular TVC card here, they've got non-TVC numbered figures, they've got vehicles, deluxe packs, all of that is on there. They're great. So I will be using these quite often on my channel because they're very clean. One thing to note about these checklists is he did not include images for alternate card backs. So if the same VC number had alternate versions, he simply put a note next to it as alt pick. Same thing for reissues. So there is only one image per VC number. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we'll quickly run through the Phantom Menace figures we do have in TVC, starting with VC71, Mahonic Podracer Pilot, followed by VC72, Naboo Pilot, then VC73, Aura Singh, VC74, Gungan Warrior, VC75, Qui-Gon VC76, Obi-Wan Kenobi, VC77, Rats Tyrell and Pit Droid, VC78, Battle Droid, VC79, Darth Sidious, VC80, Anakin Skywalker, VC81, Ben Quadranaros and Ahsoka, VC82, Dulce Delphine, VC83, Naboo Royal Guard, VC84, Queen Amidala, VC85, Quinlan Voss, VC86, Darthmaul, VC108, Jar Jar Binks, and finally that unnumbered Jar Jar Binks and Carbonite from the SDCC Carbon Freezing Chamber set. But like I said, we're not going to really count that one as a Phantom Menace figure. Yes, it's got the Phantom Menace logo, but it's not canon from that film, so I don't really count it for this purpose. Alright, so that's a look at all the TVC figures we do have from the Phantom Menace. But before we get into what's missing, I want to quickly go over my personal top 5 favorite Phantom Menace figures for TVC. At number 5, I have Mahonic Podracer Pilot VC71. Now, ironically, I do not have this figure. A lot of you think I probably have every single TVC figure, and that's just not true. I'm actually still missing quite a few prequel trilogy figures, and this is one of them. And I think he looks really good. I think he's got some nice paint apps, and I just think he's really cool. The card back is excellent, and I really like the podracing pilots. I hope they eventually make all of them, and so this is a great one that we already have. Coming in at number 4, I have VC86 Darth Maul. Now this is an outdated figure, and I think a lot of us would like to see Hasbro go ahead and update this figure, but it still looks pretty good, and it came with a lot of accessories, and the card back is amazing. The card back, maybe my favorite part of this thing. They chose the perfect image of Maul there with his saber ignited. Here you can see all the accessories he came with, including his binocs. And so that was awesome. I like that it had cloth goods and plastic goods. You can see it is VC86, and there's a look at the rest of the wave. So anyways, when you factor in that it's a pretty good looking figure, it has very good accessories and an awesome card back, this one easily makes my top 5 at number 4. Coming in at number 3, I have VC82 Dolte Dauphine, the Nemoidian from the Trade Federation. I just think it's a pretty cool card back, and the figure looks very good. I think it's a very good sculpt. Let's take a closer look at that card back. Just a great image there of Dolte. You know, they pretty much nailed that. And then there is the sculpt. It's a great looking head sculpt. And I really like the way the figure just looks in general. The combination of cloth goods and soft plastic. I just think they nailed the way it looks. Now, I can't speak to the articulation because I don't have this figure loose. I've never had him loose. But definitely a good looking figure and a great looking card back. So he's my number 3. At number 2, I have the Gungan Warrior. This is VC74, and I just think this is another good figure and card back combo. Let's take a look at that card back, and I like the color used on the name pill and the figure pill. It's kind of a rusty brown. I just don't recall seeing that used before. I have to check my other figures. I really like the image used. It's obviously CGI, but then again, so was the character in the movie, so not a big deal. And I just think the sculpt and the paint apps of this figure are awesome. Again, I don't have this one loose, so I don't really know about the articulation. Yeah, he's got swivel hips, but everything added on that figure looks so good to me. And there's a look at the back of the card. But yeah, this is easily my second favorite figure because of the sculpt, the paint apps, and it's a great looking card back. And finally, my number 1 favorite Phantom Menace figure we have in TVC so far is Aurra Sing. She is VC73, and this is another excellent figure and card back combo. And just a really excellent figure, by the way. But let's start off by looking at the card back. It's got a nice blue sky in the background. I think those always work well for TVC card backs. And just a great image of her. Not sure it's taken directly from the film, but it's close enough. And look at the figure. That head sculpt is amazing. And look at all the accessories. She comes with this like briefcase full of lightsabers. And she's got a lot going on with her holsters. Comes with those 2 blasters as well as her long rifle, and that is just awesome that it came with all of those accessories. VC73, great image there on the back of the card. This is the complete package, easily my number 1 favorite figure from the Phantom Menace. Alright, so now it's finally time to talk about who is missing from the Phantom Menace in the Vintage Collection. And there's quite a few. I could easily name off at least 12 or 13 significant characters or versions of characters that are still missing. But I'm going to narrow it down to a top 5 plus an honorable mention because I just can't help myself. And again, these are not my top 5 most wanted figures in TVC from the Phantom Menace necessarily, but they are what I consider the top 5 most significant characters or versions of characters from the film that have yet to be made. Alright, so kicking things off with my honorable mention, I have Anakin Skywalker, the pod racing version. Now we already have a little Anakin in the line, but that's his Padawan version that's at the end of the film, and I would argue that the Tatooine version of Anakin, and particularly the pod racing version, is the most iconic of the character from that film. That pod racing scene is amazing. It's one of the main scenes you think about when you think about episode 1. So we really need a pod racing version. Now, the last time Hasbro put out a pod racing version of Anakin in figure form was in the 2012, I think it was called the Movie Heroes line, and it came with all these kind of ridiculous additional accessories, but at least it did have his racing helmet. All right, so kicking off my top 5, at number 5, I have Captain Panaka. Captain Panaka was a very significant character from the Phantom Menace. He's got a lot of screen time. He's the head of Queen Amidala's security, and really he's the most important military type figure we see for Naboo and Queen Amidala's forces. So I just can't believe we don't have a figure for him yet. TVC has the Naboo Royal Guards, but not their leader, which is Panaka. So that just doesn't make any sense to me. Really got to get him in the line. Believe it or not, the last time Hasbro put out an action figure for Captain Panaka was on the original Episode 1 line, which is from 1999, so he is well overdue for an update. Next up at number 4, I have Sebulba. I mentioned before when talking about Anakin that the pod racing scene was so iconic, and Sebulba was basically Anakin's biggest nemesis while he was on Tatooine. And so to me, Sebulba is actually one of the main villains of the film. And the last time Hasbro put out a figure release for Sebulba was way back in 2000 under the Power of the Jedi line. Coming in at number 3, I have Nute Gunray, the Neimoidian leader of the Trade Federation. We already have Dulce Dauphine, who wasn't even the leader of the Trade Federation. He's like the number 3 guy, I think. And so I think it's odd that they put that one out, a great release in my opinion, but skipped on the main leader. I think Nute Gunray is another main villain from this film. Sure, he's a puppet of Sidious, but he is running the Trade Federation. He is commanding the armies that are attacking Naboo. It's like the main plot of the film. So this just seems like a no-brainer to me. They have the mold from Dulce Dauphine. I'm sure they could use a lot of that to make this guy. Now, the last time Hasbro put out a Nute Gunray figure was actually in the 2003 Saga collection, but it's from Attack of the Clones. It's not the Episode 1 version, and it was with a set, this Geonosian War Room set. But the last time Hasbro actually put him out as an Episode 1 Nute Gunray was way back in the original Episode 1 line from 1999. At number 2, I have Watto. I just think Watto is one of the most iconic characters from the Phantom Menace. Very memorable character. Obviously, he is the owner of Shmi and Anakin Skywalker and plays a major role in the Tatooine part of the film. And so just another one of those characters that I find it really shocking we don't have in the TVC line. Now, the last time Hasbro put out a Phantom Menace Watto, it was actually in this Droid Factory set from 2008, and it's actually an excellent Watto. I love this version. They did a great job with the paint apps. He looks so good. Can't speak to the articulation. Don't know if I could say that they could just pop that guy on a TVC card back and call it a day, because the articulation probably is not up to standards. But nevertheless, it's still been a very long time since we've gotten a Watto release, and we need a definitive Watto for the Vintage Collection. And at number 1, my most important missing character from the TVC line for the Phantom Menace is Queen Amidala in her Theed throne room red gown. This is the most iconic image from the Phantom Menace posters, the trailers. This is what we think about when we think about Queen Amidala from the Phantom Menace. And so I think this is a no-brainer that we need this figure. I think Hasbro kind of recognizes this because they are making her for the retro collection, which kind of stings when we get, you know, a retro collection version before we get a TVC version. But maybe that means they're testing the waters, so to speak, and will eventually make a Vintage Collection version of this Queen Amidala. The last time Hasbro put out this version of Queen Amidala in figure form was in 2000 under the Power of the Jedi line. All right, so there you have it. Here is another look at my top 5 most missing characters from the Phantom Menace in the Vintage Collection. And like I was saying before, you could easily rattle off at least 12 or 13 characters that are significant and missing from the line. For example, here's another 8 that I think anyone could make an argument for that they are significant characters or significant versions of characters from the Phantom Menace still missing in TVC. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know what you think the most important characters are that are missing from the Phantom Menace for TVC. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram and on X. Take care, and we'll see you next time.